Regression. What does it mean and how is it applied statistically? Today on Lead with Love. Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Greco. For the next 30 minutes or so, we are going to lead with love. L-O-V-E, learn, offer, value, and educate. So I'm a data analytics guy. I teach data analytics. I do data analytics. I wrote a book on data analytics, all the other things that have to go along with data analytics. Matter of fact, let me show you the book. Here it is. Here it is. It's called A Data Analyst Walks into a Bar Graph. It is on Amazon. It's also on lulu.com if you want to buy it there. It is a kind of a comedic uptake on different data studies, and it even shows you how to do a data study, step by step, how to do it, what turns out, and then there's a data study in there that's kind of nonsensical in a way, but not any more nonsensical than some of the things you see on media when they talk about different types of study, like, death kills, that type of thing. So what we're going to talk about today on Lead with Love is regression. And it's interesting that that term, right? When we talk about regression, and, what is regression? Do we regress? Is it psychologically, what's important about it and everything else? But we're not going to talk about the psychological aspect of it. We're going to talk about the statistical aspect of it, the data aspect of it. And this is really a simple concept, but they make it so complex in statistics that I wonder why they do that. There's no reason to make it so complex. And the reason they make it so complex is because it's a not complicated, but it's not straightforward when you're doing anything having to do with computers, whether it be Excel or KNIME or anything else. There's some step-by-step approach you have to take, and sometimes that takes away from the overall aspect of what regression is all about. So we are going to talk about regression. So we're going to talk about it a bit at a time here, and so here's how it goes. So it's this is tons of Greek symbols represented with dots and dot plots and lines, but the underlying concept is relatively simple. And, as this person that is holding all these books show, it can be, I took an entire graduate course on regression analysis. I mean, the book is that thick. In fact, I may have it here. Do I have it? Yeah, I have it. It's back in my bookcase there somewhere. But bottom line is, this thing was that thick, all on regression aspects. So it's like, but what is regression? What is it, and what does it do from the standpoint of data analytics? So we're just going to talk about regression today, and that's going to be our deal. So to regress basically is to go back. And, we talk about this a lot, from a data perspective. However, it's to regress to the mean, right? You regress to the mean. So it has to do with, sometimes it has to do with time aspects. We talk about psychology, but in data aspects, it's regressing to the mean. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean, regress to the mean or regress to the average? I'm going to explain this, as simple as possible. And you have to remember that this is my kind of my deal here. So it's, you may get statistics professors saying, "Oh, he's all wrong." Well, bottom line is Mr. PhD in statistics. The bottom line is how do you explain it? How do you explain it to your students before you go into the actual mechanics of doing it? That's the main thing. And I've taken a look at different colleges, different universities, and the explanation just doesn't quite get it, But I have this analogy, and hopefully it'll work from the standpoint of being able to make that work for you. So here it is. So the mean, what is the mean, right? The mean is the average, And it's relative, it's used in every single type of statistical analysis you can have, right? I mean, it's so interesting from the standpoint that it's used all the time, but yet people sometimes don't know what it is, right? The sum of all values divided by the count of those values, period. That is average. That is what mean means, right? And we've all done this at one time or another, whether it be GPA or something having to do with averages, right? Batting averages, anything you have, that is what we're talking about when we talk about averages. Now, the thing I go into later on, but I'll tell you right now, is there's a thing called robustness, right? Robust. When something is robust, when a measure, a statistical measure is robust, that means it can withstand the test of highs or lows, right? Means are not robust. The mean, in other words, a high value with all these other values will raise the average. A low value with all these other values will lower the average. That's skewing, basically. It skews it. And that's what will happen. So the mean is not robust. It's not a robust measure. And it's funny because everything is based on the mean, including regression. So it's like, wait a minute, you're saying, Chris, that basically almost all of our statistical measures are based on a measure that is not robust. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. So it's interesting how we base all our statistical analysis, everything practically, on a measure that is influenced by highs and lows. I was like, whoa. So it's interesting how that works. Worked for me one time when I was bowling, because I kept getting these really low scores, right? So my average, my handicap was really high because of my low scores. And then I wasn't trying to do this, but all of a sudden I started getting better scores, and because I was getting better scores, but I have a high handicap. I was like, the top of my bowling career. It's just pretty amazing from that standpoint. So that is what we're talking about. We're talking about mean. It looks like that's a sigma, People sit there and say, oh, why does it look like a funny looking E? Well, it's not really an E, it's an S. It's the capital S in Greek. So that's the way it goes. So what happens? Nature corrects discrepancies. Nature corrects discrepancies. It always does this. And this is something. So an example, great example. Child is born to two people that are 6 feet in height. 6 feet in height. The child has a high probability of being more than 6 feet. Hypothetically ends up at 6 foot 2 inches as an adult, right? Now that 6 foot 2 inch adult finds another person that's 6 feet 2 inch and has a child with them, and the child ends up 6 foot 4 inches tall. So what happens in the future? Does this keep going on and on and on and on and on and on until people are 8 foot? You have 8 feet children. Oh my gosh, are we going to end up, the land of the giants? How does this all work? No, it doesn't. Of course not. What happens is that somewhere in there, right, somewhere in this timeline, what'll happen is that you'll have a child that is of average height, average height for either male or female. Doesn't, that's the way that goes. So regression to the mean is not only predictable, but it's inevitable. The same is true for other things in nature, including climate. And this is something that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about regression analysis and climate change, and that, not climate change, temperature. This is very important. I think a lot of people sit there and they go, Chris, weather and climate are different. Well, let me tell you the straight poop here. If you don't have weather, you don't have climate. Weather is not only a part of climate, but it is a crucial part of climate. It is a mandatory part of climate. You got to have weather to have climate. Every bit of weather is based on the sun. It's based on the sun. And what's temperature based upon? Well, temperature is based a lot on the sun, if not all on the sun. So that's where we talk about this regression thing. And it's interesting to note that you can look at people, right? They have these, maybe they have 7 foot children, right? But if that 7 foot person finds another person 7 foot and marries them, the chances are that they may have I doubt very much if they can have a person that's above 7 foot. They'll probably have an average height person, not just a person of 6 foot, but a person of average height for their sex. So male, I think it's 5'10", something like that. I think Females is 5. I want to say, I don't know, 5, something like that. Anyways, you can actually look it up. You can look it up. I think it's CDC has an entire weight scale thing that you can take a look at. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about those areas, right? Okay, good. So let's keep talking about this from a climate perspective or from a temperature perspective. So if the temperature rises or lowers throughout the year, right, it will regress to the mean by the end of the year. In other words, you will have an average at the end of the year, right? And the next chart is going to show this for the United States. And you notice that in this chart that there will be a downward segment to every upward segment. So this is the chart I got here. This is from National Weather Service, and this shows a it's Excel spreadsheet. You notice how isn't that amazing how they can draw that just by doing that? It's wild, right? Boop, 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 So this is the average global temperature. Now, looks pretty gloomy, doesn't it? And we'll go with that. We'll go with this for the next step. But you see how it goes down. It's 1860, 1880, 1900, 1920, and all of a sudden around 1940 it goes up and up and up and up and up and up. Now, what is it? What is this? Right? This is the temperature change. This is not the average global temperature, and this is very, very important. It said this is the average global temperature, but that is not true. It's the difference in temperature between each year. It's the temperature. It's the difference in temperatures. So it's going up, and it's gone up like 1.2 degrees centigrade. And I think this is also very, very important to understand. It's Celsius. This is Celsius, not Fahrenheit. Not Fahrenheit. So I mean, it doesn't look that good. It's like, oh my gosh, we're gonna, look at how it looks. Holy mackerel, we're all dead here. But that's not, look at it from another way, right? What were the average temperatures rather than the differences, right? And what we're going to do is take a look at a graph, and that graph will show you the average temperatures. I mean, it's other than that, this poor guy, he's like, what am I going to do? I mean, the next graph shows the result. And the next graph shows the result from the standpoint of the United States. All right. So United States, a lot of people might automatically tell me, well, Chris, that's just the US. It's not global temperature. I don't understand what all the other, you present something and people automatically want to like dispense with it. And the thing is, I didn't make this up. I got this data from NASA. So this isn't something that like, I made this up. Nope, didn't make this up. So let's take a look at it. And let's see what it says. That's kind of cool. Woo, there it is. Woo! This guy's just a great drawer, isn't he? A drawer. I mean, just look at this. Woo, 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 woo. Just goes around. Woo, 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 woo. This is called Doodly, by the way. I made this whole thing in a thing called Doodly, which is kind of cool because you can take your own graphics and you can put this into Doodly. So it does that. The person can take a look at it and do whatever. Whoop, 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 whoop. Let's go back. Because I wanted to show you this. There we go. Okay, so National Weather Service, right? So this is the average annual temperature. And you notice here, this is 47 to 58. Okay, so right off the bat, this doesn't look, it's like, oh my gosh, it's going up, it's going up, it's going up, it's going up. This is in Fahrenheit. Average temperature, Fahrenheit. This is how, in graphics, that people, I don't know, I don't care what people they are, will attempt to evoke emotion with these types of graphics. You see, there's only an 11 degree difference. There's an 11 degree difference between this and this. So it looks like there's a lot of variation in there. It looks like there's tons of variation in there, right? So, and it looks like it's going up. Oh my gosh, it's going up. Chris, what do we do? What do we do? Oh my gosh. So now, shoot, this also looks like it's bad, right? But now we start the graph at 0 rather than 47. And that's in the next graphic. And it seems to look a little better, but there's actually more than that. So we're going to take a look at this. Okay, so remember what that last graph looked like. And we can even go back to it if you want. But the next graph, watch what the next graph shows when you take it and and start the graph at 0, which is what you're supposed to do. Start it at 0 to make it very standard. Watch what happens when you do that. And all of a sudden now it's going to be a little bit different. So, I'm telling you, guy's talented. Look at this. Isn't that great? Wow. Oh, so anyways, yeah, he's going to get this done here in a second. So the National Weather Service, right? So, okay. So now it's adjusted to 0 degrees, right? Again, Fahrenheit, right? Oh, let's go back. Let me go back. Where are you? Ooh, I went all the way. There we go. So the red line indicates simple. I don't want to show you that yet. Not yet. Well, okay. Okay. So now this is adjusted to 0 degrees, right? Now look at it. Look at the way that is. Okay. So this is what it looks like. Now it doesn't look all that bad, does it? It really doesn't look all that bad. Suddenly it's like, wait a minute, Chris, that last one showed all over the place. This shows it in a pretty straight line. Yes, it does. And this is what the difference is when you put it to 0. That's what happens. So this is something that you need to take into consideration, right? So what does this mean, right? To say that the regression to the mean applies here is logical. That's number one. In other words, although it looks as if the temperature is all over the place, the temperature actually seems to regress to the mean. Now, the mean is approximately 52.2 degrees Fahrenheit, right? If considering all the years. If only considering 1991 to 2020, then it's 54.7 degrees. All right, now, why is that? Let me explain this. It's because the measurements were not the same. The measurements weren't the same. When you have different measurements, right, you have different results, right? And that's the way it goes. Different results. So you have the measurements done in the 1800s were like buckets of water or, anemometers, the old ones that you didn't have them. You had to do everything by hand. It was no computers, nothing that really, got very, very accurate. So a lot of this accuracy came into being, they decided in 1991. So that's what's happening here, right? And that's where temperature comes into play. So, all right, go away. I need the next one. Poof, out of here. Okay. So it's an easy one. It's an easy one for analysis when you talk about it, but it's hard. It's complicated by graphing analysis, right? It sits back and you sit back and you go, simple linear regression, right? It's SLR we're going to do that on this next graph, right? The following slide shows that. And notice how level the line appears. That means there is little difference in the data between the first and last year. So, and this pretty much wraps it up, right? I mean, that's all I wanted to make the case, right? That this was something that's going to be, that people use a lot. And the bottom line is that you really got to be careful. Because when you use this stuff, it's going to be a situation where you have to be careful about it. So this is what we have. Now look at this. I mean, average annual temperature, right? Right. The red line is the simple linear regression. Okay. Whoop. Did not mean to do that. Let's go back. So basically, let's go all the way forward here. Make sure I got that. There we go. Ooh. So now this is what we have, right? So that red line right here shows that there's little difference between 1880, 1870 and 2020, whatever this is, 2021, whatever it is. You see, a straight line, especially along the 0 axis, right along the x-axis, means that there's little difference between those, it means it regresses to the mean, whatever that mean may be. So that's what I'm trying to get across. You have to be, it proves the theory, and everybody's talking about these different areas as being, oh my gosh, it's, what do we do? What do we do? So, I mean, it refers to the mean or the average. Now, the average, again, not robust. It's influenced by radically high, radically low differences, values. The previous graph seems to indicate that our average temperature is still, well, average. That's what, I mean, so people are trying to make they talk about science aspects, and they talk about, you gotta trust the science. Okay, this is the science. Now, people sit back and they go, you're manipulating the data. No, I'm not. What I'm doing is I'm presenting the graphics the way it's supposed to be presented, with 0 as the bottom, because 0 degrees can occur. So it's interesting how that all works. So that pretty much, I think that pretty much finishes out my presentation here. But I wanted to hit one more item, and that is that people sit back and they go, oh, I think, Chris, what about Europe? Well, this is European. This is the European measurements here. I got this from KNMI, which is like the, I think it's the Netherlands, I think it's the Netherlands. So they do European measurements. And this is what I found here, that, this is the annual average temperature. And so that's what that is here, all the way from 1901 to 2022. And I graphed that. Well, this looks like I did a regression analysis on this, and it looks like it's going up. It looks like it's going up. Now you sit back and you go, well, Chris, doggone it. Yes, that's what I mean. But you have to take into consideration a couple of things. First of all, this is Celsius. It's not Fahrenheit. This is Celsius. It's not Fahrenheit. So I think it's very important to understand the differences between Fahrenheit and Celsius. And this is the difference. And this is a major difference. And I'm going to show this to you right here, right now. In Celsius, right, the freezing is 0 degrees. The boiling, whatever you want to call it, is 100 degrees. Well, that's Celsius. But what about Fahrenheit? Well, Fahrenheit, the freezing is 32, and the boiling is 212. Now, the difference between this is 100. The difference between this is 180. That's a major difference. That's a major difference when you talk about these different things. That means that within this area, you can sit back and go, geez, yeah, you can do that with Celsius, but Fahrenheit will be a different measure. And because it will be a different measure, it will also graph differently from that. And you know something? What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to leave that to you. I'm going to leave that to you and make sure that you understand that that's exactly what you need to do, is to figure out those differences, and then go ahead and put those differences into play. And when you do that type of stuff, all of a sudden it brings it into a much bigger area from the standpoint of this climate change stuff. And just to be political for just a moment, the COP28, which is the current climate area, was done in Dubai. And Dubai is, one of the major producers of oil, which I think is hilarious. So, they're saying, oh, we got to get rid of oil. Really? Yeah. So I just don't think that people are going to put that much. I mean, they're going to talk a lot, but with everything else, it's going to be a no action talk only NATO meeting. No action talk only. It's going to be a lot of talking, and giving funds and little bits of funds here and there, and they're going to walk away and say, gee, we did climate change. I'm going to tell you right now, climate's going to change. It's going to change every 30 years. That's the way the climate has been doing for the last millennia or whatever, 200,000 years or whatever it is. Although that's bullcrap, because you can't measure what happened 200,000 years. I don't give a crap about all these scientific, you cannot You cannot tell me what happened 200,000 years ago. In fact, you can't tell me what happened 2,000 years ago. You really can't. I mean, you can try, but you're not going to be able to do that because there's a lot of things that happen that you have no idea what happened 2,000 years ago. So your whole idea about I can measure, depth of ground and, figure out temperature and whatever else. Yes, very intelligent, very educated, very, that's really great. You got the formulas, you got the calculators, you got everything else going that with that. But let me tell you something. It's a guess, educated guess, but it's a guess. So what we need to do is sit down and figure out, next 30 years, what the situation is. And they can stop all this 1.5 degrees centigrade stuff, because I'll tell you something, that's going to change. Within the next 5 years, they're going to say, well, it's really going to be 2 degrees centigrade, or it's what, people are going to come back and they're going to do the data again, and they're going to take a look at the data again, and they're going to change your mind again. So the only thing you can do is sit back and look at the data and say to yourself, regression works. Regression to the mean works. It works in nature. It works in everything. And what will happen is it'll come back to that mean. Now, a lot of people might say, well, the mean changes. If the mean changes over a period of time, 30 years, 35 years, then that's what will happen. But it's interesting to me how people will make predictions like, I can change, I don't know, child marriage. Michelle Obama and Melinda Gates and whoever else, they said that. They said we're going to eliminate child marriage in a generation. What's a generation? Generation to me is like 35 years. In 35 years, people are going to forget this. They're going to forget that they even said it. I mean, they're saying it now. What's the plan for 35 years? Give me a plan of action for 35 years. Plan of action. At COP, there's no plan of action. We're just going to eliminate this by 2040. How are you going to do that? There's no plan. So give me a plan. And I think that's pretty fair from that standpoint. And that's what I'm trying to share here with this Learn, Offer, Value, Educate. Is that, look, I value all this stuff. I do. I take a look at it, from a data perspective. I try to make sense of it. I try to do those things. But let me tell you, it's, the thing is, there's more people. There's 8 billion people now on the earth. And I think that is the major aspect. You got to house them. You got to feed them. You got to, you got to provide heat, cool, all that stuff. It's just going to happen until populations stop. It's, you're going to constantly have more and more people, more and more building, more and more whatever. So that's part of the deal. Climate change in the next 30 years, who knows what's going to look like? And somebody's going to come up, one of these young people, because I'm telling you, youth is our solution. It's not a problem. It's our solution. Some young person is going to come up with a solution to this. They're going to come up with a solution to it. Not people that complain about it, not people that sit in front of the UN and say, how dare you, and all the other horse poop that goes along with that. Young people that figure out a solution to this area. They're the ones that we need to make sure and encourage and help blossom. Those are the people, not the ones out there. I'm not saying all activists are bad, but I'm saying bottom line is stop talking and stop raising your sign and stop, come up with solutions. Come up with solutions. Stop trying to get rid of all the nuclear power plants, because that's the only thing that's going to be able to work in the future. If you get rid of oil and coal and whatever else. All right, enough of my soapbox. This is about regression. Let's leave it like that. Sorry about that. Just listen up to the place where I started to espouse junk and then dump it. Because really I want to share. And I do want to share. And I want to make sure that sharing is a positive deal. So on that note, I will say, try, learn, offer, value, educate, learn from others, offer to others, value others, educate others. That's what life is all about. And that's what this show is all about. And I will see you next time on Lead with Love.